Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Today I am here on the phone with Mike Bender, PGA. Mike Bender is the 2009 PGA Teacher of the Year and is the author of this book I'm holding up right here. He's on speakerphone right there. Say hi, Mike.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
I was introduced to Mike by Tony Lutzak, my instructor, and also my basically the head instructor of the BENDER golf schools. And we just did, about 3 weeks ago, a school at the Mike Bender Golf Academy, an amazing facility. And I started looking at, in preparation for doing that school there, I wanted to learn more about Mike's philosophies. I had seen just some stuff, Mike, with the infomercial about the Bender stick, and just saw you do some tips on the Golf Channel, but I didn't really get the gist of, I didn't really understand your philosophy just from those bits and pieces. But if somebody was to ask you like an elevator pitch, like if you just had like 30 seconds in the elevator with a golfer, what would be your elevator pitch on how people can get better at golf?
Well, I think the golf swing is like is a technique, like playing a musical instrument. So one of the things you need to do is you need to have a direction, and you need to get some help from somebody that can, it's like a road map going from Florida to Chicago. You want to follow that direction, and if you have good direction and good ways of practicing, you're going to improve for sure. But too many people try too many different tips. Try this, try that, buy this club, buy that club, and they get frustrated, and they really don't improve at the end of a year when those bodies really aren't any better than they were when they started.
No, when you think about how much better you get each year versus how much worse you get each year just from getting older, it's a lot of times a pretty sad battle.
Well, I think it is because again, people don't follow a direction, and they try to implement things in their golf swing that they may have heard through a magazine or maybe on the Golf Channel or whatever, and so they try it and they do this series of things because they have hope, right? Their hope is, hey, this is really going to help me. But the bottom line is it probably doesn't fit into what they really need, so it doesn't really help them that much.
Right. Yeah, I've interviewed Mike. I don't know how much you know about BENDER Golf, but I've interviewed dozens of golf instructors across the country, and then via kind of like what we're doing now across the world. And the one thing I found is that about 95% of the instructors, the first thing they tell me is, oh, I'm not a method instructor. And then sometimes it takes 15 minutes, and sometimes it takes 2 weeks, but eventually you do find everybody's method. So when every instructor, they are looking for a certain thing. So when I hear you talk about a roadmap and a system, a lot of other instructors might say, well, oh, that's a method, or he's trying to fit you into some kind of cookie cutter. What would you say to that?
Well, I think the word method has a wrong implication in the golf industry, and I replace the word with method with preference. So as instructors, we have a preference that we would like to see people do. Now, having said that, everybody's bodies are different, right? They have different injuries, different ranges of motions, and things like this. But having said that, there is a preference of, let's say, the grip, for instance. I mean, if you taught 10 beginners a lesson, you wouldn't teach them all a different grip. You teach them all a fundamentally sound grip, because that that if they have that good grip, they've got a better chance of controlling the club face and using their wrist properly and things like this. So that would be a preference. But I teach Zach Johnson, who has a very, very strong grip, right? So you have to be able to adapt within your preference or within your method to be able to fit into a person's goals, to fit into their type of range of motion, how much time they have to practice. I mean, there's many factors that go into kind of the prescription for what you would do within your method. And I think what happens is people talk about a method, and what that implies is that, okay, every lesson the guy's going to have to set up this way, and he's going to have to have this backswing and this takeaway, and so preferences and methods they're not really exactly the same thing. I don't know. Hopefully that makes some sense to you.
No, it does. And when you're talking about because the main audience of Be Better Golf is golfers who've been playing for a long time, and they or for a little while, and they really feel like they're just not getting any better. So then they take off on a hunt on YouTube looking for ways to get better, and eventually they get to our channel. So for people that are seeing and ingesting a lot of tips and things like that, one of the things that you see a lot and people try to argue sometimes about is they get lots of tips from great players of the past and of the present. So PGA Tour players and legends like Ben Hogan or Nicklaus, or things that Bobby Jones have said. And do you think that, what's the difference between taking advice from these different sources like great players? Is that something people should be wary of, or is that a real good source, or what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, players are great because they know how to play the game great. They are really not the model for how to swing a golf club. And the reason I say that is you have the Jim Furicks, and you have the Dustin Johnsons, and you have a Bubba Watson, right? You've got a multitude of different swings on the PGA Tour too, but they're great players. So people tend to assume that they really know a lot about the golf swing, or that their method must work because they're a great player. But I will tell you that the PGA Tour players are the experts in how to play golf, how to play the game, and how to manage their game. And then they're the experts, on how to score. And the reason they're out there is because whatever method they have or whatever swing they have repeats. And one of the requirements for playing great golf is a repeating golf swing that produces very consistent results, right? So the great thing about golf is there's a lot of different types of swings depending on the level of talent. Now, these guys on the tour are great athletes in general. They're great basketball players, ping pong players. You give them anything with a ball and a stick or whatever. I mean, these guys are good, right? And they got great eye-hand coordination. So the average golfer doesn't necessarily have all of that. And if you've played golf for several years and your handicap hasn't gotten any better, then you basically have proven that your way of doing things, is only going to get you to that level. So I'm not a big fan of listening to what the tour players have to say and then thinking that's going to work for you. Right. But I'm not trying to talk too long here, but one thing I would say is the YouTube and all these different sources, what you should do, and my advice to the people out there listening would be, hey, find somebody that you think sounds like they know what they're talking about, or they demonstrate that you can see the before and afters with some of their students. And that's what you should be using YouTube for, is to pick an instructor or a type of philosophy and then just follow that.
Yeah, because do you think that it would be better to maybe pick a non-optimal instructor but follow him completely, or rather than pick like 4 or 5 awesome instructors and like flip-flop between them?
Yeah, because the best analogy I can give you is when you take a jigsaw puzzle, right? You take a jigsaw puzzle, and the first thing you do is all the pieces are laid out, right? Mm-hmm. The first thing you do before you put the puzzle together is you look at the picture on the box, because that's the finished picture. And so once you have the finished picture, then you start putting the pieces in place, and the more pieces that go into place, the easier it is to finish the puzzle. So think of the golf swing that way, and the fact that you have to understand where you're going to get to with this instructor. What is he trying to get me to do? And then let's stay with that program, and let's start putting the pieces in place, and then as you do, your swing gets better and better, and as a result, everything starts to get better, from your short game to your scoring, and so it's just a much better way to go.
And one thing I wanted to ask you about, Mike, because you were just today working with Zach on his swing, right? Or I don't know what you guys were working on, but. And one thing I wanted was interesting to me, and we'll get more into the sequence later, but if I was to watch a slow motion swing of Zach Johnson, and I remember going to a PGA Tour tournament and watching here in California and watching Zach, and hearing the comments from the gallery on what they thought he was doing in his swing. And when you watch Zach swing in slow motion, and when you watch it even in real life, you get the idea that he's doing certain things. But then when I started hearing some of your philosophies, it's almost completely the opposite of what I thought, what you would think he would be doing. For example, with Zach's strong grip, a lot of people say that TV commentators and slow motion analysts, even on TV, say it looks like he's got this strong grip and he's just rotating as hard as he can with his lower body and holding on for dear life and just leaving the upper body behind him so that he doesn't snap it. But then I've heard from your instruction that it might be 180 the other way.
It is. I mean, in other words, if you look at his swing in slow motion, what you will see is from the top of his backswing, if you look at his knees, okay, and when the knees get back to square, meaning they return back to the addressed position, his hands have come all the way down below his waist. So his arms are accelerating toward the ball very, very quickly and independently, meaning moving faster than the lower body. And as the arms get down in front of him, then he rotates very aggressively through the shot. But he is definitely not rotating right from the top, which is what you hear Peter Costas, you'll hear a lot of these different commentators say that he's rotating, as fast as he can so that he doesn't, hook the ball. But in reality, that is not true. And if you look at it on video in slow motion, you'll definitely see that sequence is not the way they describe it.
Yeah, Mike, so many amateurs we see at that checkpoint you're talking about, when the knees get back to parallel to the target line, their arms are still like ear high.
Correct.
And which is, I don't know if that would be called stuck, or if stuck would be more behind them. But this is I wanted to talk to you a lot because one of the great revelations in the channel with me, and one of the reasons that I did start working with Tony Lutzak, was this idea that, because if I look at a slow motion swing, and if I hear the things that Jack Nicklaus had said, and some other great players throughout history, the swing in slow motion, it looks like the feet go, then the knees go, then the hips go, then the belly goes, then the shoulders go, then the arms go, and finally the hands, and then the club head. So it looks like, okay, well, is that what I should be doing? Should I be kind of cranking it from the ground up and like waiting for to fire everything differently? But I know that this is the area that I think is the most controversial, this transition area. What is your idea of, from a motor control aspect, what people should be thinking from the top?
Well, let's just examine some facts before you think about this. And the first fact is that the entire downswing, okay, from the top of your swing to impact takes 1/4 of 1 second. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's a very, very short time space. And if you look at anything, if you look at, let's say, the debate is always between the body and what the arms are doing, right? It's just the body leading the arms or whatever, which is what is so commonly taught and thought about. But the body, the trunk of the body is really, really strong. And it does not, if you rotate in 1/4 of a second from a dead stop, it can't rotate that fast to make the arms whip down there in 1/4 of a second. So if you look at, sports like ping pong or snapping a towel or, anything with any speed, drummers or whatever, they're using their arms and their wrists because your arms and wrists are capable of tremendous speed. But the body is stronger, and it's strength. There's a lot of strength there if I'm lifting, pulling, pushing. So the body plays an important role in stability, because if my body is very, very grounded and stable in the transition, and my arms have something to accelerate against, and I use the example of a sprinter when he puts his foot in the block and the gun goes off, the reason they use a block is because he can get a faster start in the 100-yard dash, or whatever it may be. So that's the same way with your arms. But what happens in amateur golf is they have so much tension in their forearms and shoulders that when in the transition, they don't have any freedom to accelerate those arms. And what happens is, because you've linked up the left and right hand sides of the body with with both arms on the club, then they use the shoulders and the bigger muscles to try to generate their speed. And so they're immediately rotating as fast as they can from the top, but that rotation tends to throw everything, throws the hands and the club and everything out over the plane, and that causes most of the problems that they have, from casting to, chunking the ball, miss hits, all that kind of stuff. So there's what you're saying, again, there's a difference between feel and real. So if you look at pictures, you see the hips start moving slightly, or they will start moving. You'll see some movement in the shoulders and so forth. But then there's really what does it feel like? And in my opinion, when I have people feel like they start their downswing more with the acceleration of their arms and they learn how to do it, they not only swing the club more from the inside on plane, but they're shocked at how easy it feels and how much distance they can generate, and how much effortless it is.
Yeah, Mike, if you have a golfer at your golf school, I'm sure in Lake Mary, Florida, I'm sure you get this a lot. But if you have let's say like a fairly decent golfer, like a single-digit handicap that is an over-the-top golfer, and if he says to you, well, when I see my own swing, it looks like I'm all arms. And if I watch the PGA Tour on the weekend, it looks like they're going with their hips a lot more than I am. So they'll think that they need to go even harder with the body and the hips in transition. How do you convince a player like that they should be going harder with their arms, or accelerating their arms first, if they feel like they're already so armsy?
Right. Well, they again, there's that feel versus real.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, we've had people come to us, and all of us as instructors, and they go, well, what do you want to do? And they go, well, I don't hit it anywhere. All I do is swing with my arms. And whenever they say that, I know it's the exact opposite. I know what they're doing is they're actually swinging with all body, but they think it's all arms. And they might be even falling back on their right foot, and they feel like, oh, I'm not getting my weight through. But the problem is they're spinning from the top, and part of the compensation for that, or one of the compensations, is falling back on your right foot and not getting your weight through. So they have this opposite, actually, concept of what it is that their problem is. And so, there's some drills that we do and some tests that we do. Just one of them is very simply with an impact bag, and we put a shaft in front. We put an impact bag behind a shaft, and then we have them set up and address it square, and then we have them hit the impact bag. And about 95% of all the players doing that, the impact bag rotates dramatically to the left, which is an indicator that they're coming over the top. The club is, not coming in on the right angle. So, we'll use drills like that to show them. And then the other thing is I'll tell them, if you really think about it, I mean, if you look at there's a guy, Jamie Sedlowski, and if you go on YouTube and look up Jamie Sedlowski hitting golf balls from his knees, well, he's flying the ball. He has a TrackMan launch monitor. He's flying the ball 340 yards in the air, and he's hitting off his knees. So when you're on your knees, I mean, obviously you can't really rotate very well. You can't use your hips very well. You can't really use your shoulders hardly at all either. So how is he able to do that? The question, and that has to be answered, because it's not like he's just a freak or something. And then I'll do it, and I'll make swings. I'll do a thing what I call the fold-up drill, where I'll swing as hard as I can, and I'll keep everything closed as I can. And I'm hitting my 7-iron about 170 yards or 175 yards with no weight transfer, with no rotation whatsoever. So when they see those types of things, it kind of, the light bulb sometimes goes off in their head. They start to realize that, hey, maybe that concept that I have is not right.
Yeah, when a player they're at the top of their swing, and they're in their downswing, they have a ton of torso rotation and a lot of hip rotation, but their arms are basically locked to their body. They feel like they're all arms, but their arms have just basically been frozen against themselves, you're saying?
yeah, they're not really using their wrists and arms properly, and the wrist position and how the wrists work in the golf swing is very important as well, because as we know, you can flip your wrist, which is a kind of a breakdown of the left wrist coming through the ball, or your left wrist can rotate and be more flat or even slightly bowed, and those two wrist positions create dramatically different results of a golf shot. But you have to be able to come into the golf ball from the proper angle before you can ever have that kind of a release or wrist action. So there's many factors that go into it, but there's cause and effect. And I again, I use lots of analogies and everything, but it's like dominoes all lined up, and one falls against the other. And if you're working on something in your golf swing that's way down the list, but there's other dominoes in front of it that are down, you're working out of sequence, you're working out of order, you're not going to get results. You're going to be frustrated with your efforts unless you're treating the cause.
Yeah, Mike, when you talk about power, because here I have your book, I'm holding it up for the camera right now, Build the Swing of a Lifetime, which is a fantastic book. There's a link for it in the description below, you guys, if you want to check it out. In the back of the book, my favorite part is this sequence and the drills part. And here I'm showing the camera a picture of the square hips shoulders drill, which is basically the fold-up drill, right?
Yes, that's right.
And I'm showing the camera a picture of that. So Mike, basically, when you're doing that drill, like I missed the numbers there. So what do you hit your 7-iron normally?
170 yards.
Okay, and when you're doing this fold-up drill, where there's basically no real conscious hip drive through the ball, Mike's basically, guys, just to show you, he's hitting it and basically freezing the body there as the arms accelerate through. Now it's 170 normally. Now when doing the fold-up drill, how far do you hit it?
It's the same distance. Basically, thereabouts, it's the same distance. Now people would say, if that's the same, then you're not really using your body right. You know what I mean? So,
right.
But so I feel like, hey, if my body turned faster down toward the bottom, if I did get some more distance, it would be a matter of a few yards. It wouldn't be, in other words, I wouldn't hit it 170 doing the fold-up drill, and then if I use my hips aggressively, I'm going to hit it 190 or whatever. I mean, I'm an old man, right?
Not really.
I'm in my 60s. So the point is that, again, it's you have to have, speed is not, I use a definition of speed versus power. So and my analogy for that would be a motorcycle and a four-wheel, or a motorcycle at a red light against a four-wheel drive Jeep, let's say. And let's say the Jeep has 300 horsepower. I don't know what the motorcycle does, but not nearly that amount of horsepower, right? And the light turns green. Who's going to win the race? And obviously the motorcycle is going to win every time because it's quicker. And it's the same way with your arms and hands. If I'm relaxed and I accelerate those things and I come down on the right angle and I have a good release, I can create dramatic and impressive club head speed without the rotation aspects of the body.
Yeah, because what might feel very hard and very powerful might actually be a lot slower.
That's correct, because once again, your body is strong, and it is powerful. Meaning you can knock things over and you can lift things, and it's powerful. But it's not quick in a quarter of a second. In a quarter of a second, which the downswing is, and again, we're swinging a golf club that weighs around 11 or 12 ounces or whatever it is. It's a pretty light object, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're swinging a baseball bat or we're swinging, something that's very, very heavy.
Yeah.
So, anyway, if that makes sense.
It does. And Mike, talk a little bit. There's a tour player that on the Asian tour that's a friend of mine and a fan of the channel, and he wanted me to ask you, what is the connection between having soft arms at the top and the ability to accelerate your arms?
Well, I think a lot. The correlation is a lot. Meaning, if your arms are soft and relaxed, then a loose muscle, they say, is a quick one, right?
Yeah.
tight muscle. If you tense up your muscles, then your arms become linked with your body, and the only way to move your arms is to move your body, and that's what so many people do. And, as we're going through this and talking a little bit about it, I don't want people to get the wrong impression and say that, that Bender, he's just saying all we need to do is swing our arms. The golf swing is really a blend. It's a blending of arm acceleration and body rotation. Mm-hmm. And so I think the body rotation is a very important aspect of the golf swing, but I don't think it's important in the transition to try to generate club head speed. And especially for most of the people out there listening, because if they can, the tour pros, I mean, they're all, almost every single tour pro has amazing speed in their arms and hands. I mean, they use their arms and hands very, very well. But the average amateur golfer does not.
Yeah, your assistant, or I don't know if she's your assistant, but Cheryl Anderson, when I was talking to her at your school, she told me the statistic that on the LPGA, their hips are faster than the PGA Tour players, but their club head speed is, 30% less or something.
That would not surprise me at all.
So it's just, so when somebody, what percentage of golfers would you say are really even basically ready to even use the body in their swing, if you know what I mean? As far as
probably less than 5% of them. So here's a question that I have for you and for everybody out there listening. Especially those of you who look at YouTube and listen to a lot of the instructors and instruction out there, how many books have you read lately or seen or anything on YouTube that really highlights how the arm should work in the golf swing versus how much instruction and things have you heard about, the ground forces, jumping, spinning, using the body?
Well,
what would you say, Brendan?
Well, I'm holding a book here, Build the Swing of a Lifetime, that talks quite a bit about it. But I'm an expert on YouTube videos and basically the analytics of what gets watched and what people want to see. And the overwhelming avalanche of the majority of tips are about the lower body, twisting, coiling, X factor, all these things to do to really gain power from the ground, center of pressure versus center of mass. It goes on and on about so much stuff of the tips are about, like that lower body jumping through.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing. And there's even people would go back and go, what about Hogan's book? He talked about really spinning the hips. But I had some a guy that I knew that I taught years ago that actually spent a lot of time with Hogan, and he talked about how he said the arms are the accelerator of the golf swing and the hands were the steering wheel. And I said, well, didn't he talk about the hips? And he says, well, actually, no. I spent 3 days with him, and he never really talked about the hips.
There's that famous. I don't think it was the Ed Sullivan show, but it was the late night show where Hogan saying, well, what you got to do is put your elbows on your body and rotate back and through. That drill he has with people's elbows locked to their body. And because the power comes, and then in the Shell's Wonderful World of Golf, he talks about, because the power comes from here, and that stuff is referenced constantly.
Right, and I think, I just, if I got one more minute here, I want to explain something that I did. I did something the other day, and I'm going to put it on YouTube because I think it's well worth watching. But I got in the bay with the TrackMan launch monitor, and I sat in a chair that swivels. And I had a 6-iron, and I teed up a ball, and I swung it as hard as I could, and it was about 66 miles an hour with the chair that swiveled. And my feet were off the ground. And then I got a chair, and I sat on a chair that did not swivel, so that was fixed where my butt was sitting, and it went up to 72 miles an hour. Okay.
Yep.
Then I got down on my knees, and I swung the club as hard as I could off my knees, same golf club. It went up to 83 miles an hour. And then I stood up and I did the fold-up drill, which again, I'm doing that fold-up thing, and it went to 91 miles an hour. and then I made a normal golf swing where I rotated my hips as hard as I could, and I swung as hard as I could, and I got 1 mile an hour more. I went to 92 miles an hour. So the thing that's interesting about the video that I'm looking forward to posting would be, the explanation of what is happening, because with every swing, with each swing, I felt like, and I tried to swing my arms as fast as I could. So the arm swing and the arm acceleration, or the amount of effort that I used, was the same in all of them. But what changed was the resistance to the ground. And as my resistance to the ground got greater, my arms were able to travel faster and faster. So when these guys are all talking about spinning and using the ground forces and everything, I think they are onto something. But the only thing is they're not talking about, you still have to accelerate the arms. If all you do is spin the body, spin the hips, jump off a jumping, diving board or whatever, where you have that different vertical forces, but you don't have any arm acceleration, none of that's going to really make any difference.
So you're saying that a lot of, I would say 80% of instruction right now, especially if you look up things for power, you're going to see 80 to 90% of instruction is this lower body and twisting and stuff. But you would say that most people that would maybe be the very last step, like the very last piece of the puzzle to add to maybe get a little bit more.
It's beyond where the people need to start.
Right.
And let me give you an example real quick.
Please, no, take your time.
If you take a rope and a ball, let's say we had a ball on the end of a rope, and you start swinging it in a circle, right?
Yeah.
And you use your wrist. So you're using your wrist and you're swinging that thing in a tight circle, and it's going really, really fast. What makes that ball accelerate is the force pulling backward. Okay, so number one, you got to get the ball in motion. But as your wrists are rotating, they're actually pulling the opposite direction that the ball is traveling in. So anytime if you have acceleration, and then you have a force that actually goes in the opposite direction of the acceleration is going to be increased. And the best example is a boat and a water skier. So the boat and the water skier take off, they're going in a straight line, they're going 40 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden the boat takes this very sharp corner and actually goes back the other way. Now the water skier actually goes more than 40 miles an hour. He might go up to 50 miles an hour or something. And so the two conditions that had to exist was, number one, the boat and the water skier had to be accelerating as fast as they could go in a straight line. And then the second condition is there had to be a very sharp change of direction. And so how that relates to the golf swing, if my arms and hands and the club are accelerating as hard as they can toward that golf ball, and then all of a sudden you jump in the air or you spin your body in the opposite direction, now you have a chance of whipping that club faster and creating more club head speed.
Yeah. Guys, if
you're just merely trying to think of the boat and the water skier again, and the boat says, okay, I'm going to make a corner before we ever get out of the water. All you're doing is dragging the water skier through the water. The water skier isn't going to go fast.
Well, he'll probably sink.
Exactly.
All right, Mike, I want to get a little bit into one of the things that made that I was so excited about to go to your academy when we did our school there was I am a huge fan, and here in my backyard you guys will see on video I have dozens and dozens of training aids and things like that, and a lot of teachers really shy away from using training aids and pool noodles and obstructions, and they more want to just say, hey, if you can't do it with a golf club, then you just need to figure out how to do it with a golf club. I know that you're a huge fan, and looking through your book, almost every single drill in here has something else with it. Either it be a basketball or an arrangement of pool noodles or a kind of like a foam pillow. what do you like about using obstacles and things to get better at golf? And tell me a little bit about your personal experience being a player and when you realized really what it was going to take to make improvements.
Right. Well, I mean, it goes back to when I worked with David Ledbetter years ago, and he was the first guy to put me on film, and he put me on film, and then, you know, he saw what was wrong, and he told me what I needed to do, and I'd go away, and no one practiced harder than I did at that time that I knew of, right? I practiced every day, all day long, and I would go back to him after doing that all week, and I got on video, and there would be little to no change, but the feeling was dramatic during the week. I mean, it's like, oh, wow, this feels way different. So I really thought I was really doing something.
Right. So for example, I think you were trying to get your swing flatter in this story, right?
I was, yeah. I was trying to get my swing on a lower plane with my left arm.
So all week you were feeling like it was super low. You were feeling it was super low, and you couldn't wait to show them your progress, huh?
Exactly. And then I'd get on that thing and I would be so frustrated because it really didn't look any different. And I felt like, man, not only am I wasting my own time, I'm wasting money, and I'm probably wasting Ledbetter's time. So I finally got frustrated enough to where I just said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to over-exaggerate this beyond imagination. And I tried to copy this guy, Doug Sanders, who was an old-time tour pro, had probably the flattest swing ever. So I visualized him, and I was shanking balls, and I was topping them and everything, but I didn't care because I was just wanted to show Ledbetter I could make a change.
Yeah.
And prove to myself I could do it. And I go back that next week, and I get on video and my swing, and he goes, "Oh, wow, your swing is just right. You finally made the correction, right?" So
you thought he was going to say you overcooked it. What did you do?
I thought for sure, and I was laughing when I went in there, right? Because when I went in to look at the video, and you know, as the week went on, I started hitting it better and better with this really crazy feeling swing, right? So years later, when I quit playing, I started teaching. I'd give a good lesson, the player would get better and seem to make some change, and then I'd come back a few weeks later and we'd get on the video again, and it'd be right back to the old thing, back to their old habits. And so I started putting things in the way to guarantee to give them feedback, because when you're hitting a golf ball, all you see is the ball, and there's a feeling associated with your swing, but you don't really know where you are in space because there's no feedback. So once I started putting things in the way to where if you went into the wrong space, you would bump into it, I found that people started changing their golf swings dramatically.
And way faster.
And not only that, but they were able to practice on their own without me being there, and they were able to, really make some great changes. So I think, and then since that time, there's a Dr. Coop. Let me think. I'm just quoting. It's another guy. I'll think of his name here in a moment. But he did a seminar one time, and he talked about how the brain works in developing a motor program, which is really what you're doing when you're changing a golf swing.
Yeah.
And he said that the bottom line was the two fastest ways to change a motor program are exaggeration and then negative feedback, basically, and the feedback would be bumping into something if you do it wrong. And he said if those are the two fastest ways to learn, but unfortunately, there's a lot of teachers out there, they didn't grow up learning that way, and so a lot of times they tend to teach the way they learn, and they don't really understand the power of feedback, and they also maybe aren't teaching enough exaggeration, because in my career, I've been teaching for almost 30 years, and I've seen 12 people overdo anything I taught them, to the point where where we had to say, wait a minute, you've really overcooked this.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing to me, Mike, because I've heard you, that was on my list about exaggeration, and you're the only teacher I've heard say that, where, for example, like if I'm, so just with exaggeration, it's just, I always worry when I'm doing a swing change that I'm gonna overcook, and all of a sudden like the Bobby Jones quote about any good thing about a swing can be turned into a swing fault or something like that. But you haven't found that, huh?
Right. I mean, there's lots of sayings. You got to go a mile to get an inch, to gain an inch. And the analogy I use for that to demonstrate that is a spring. If you take a spring and it's straight up and down and you bend it over, let's say the spring represents your current golf swing. Mm-hmm. And then we bend it over halfway because that represents where we want the golf swing to be or where we want the spring to be. Well, if you just let go of it, it snaps right back. And that letting go of it's going out onto the golf course after you've had a lesson. Let's say you're working on exactly what you want to do. And then you go out on the golf course, it snaps right back. But if you bend that spring as far as it'll bend, and you bend it all the way over, and you keep doing that, pretty soon the thing is going to snap, and is never going to go all the way back to where it used to go. So, and typically when we're having people exaggerate, we're having them exaggerate on the better side of things. For instance, if a guy's coming over the top, which would you rather do? Come too much outside in, or too much from inside out?
Oh, definitely inside out, yeah.
Right, exactly. So if you actually do overdo it and you're from the inside, you're still going to hit a lot of great shots.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty important way. If you're out there and you're trying to improve your swing, you really need to do that.
So what's coming up? What's next for you, Mike? I know that you're going to start to do some more video and stuff, and some more. These are all YouTube viewers. So they'll be excited to see some more YouTube stuff with you. What's coming up next for you?
My next project and kind of my biggest last goal for my career really is I am developing an instructor certification program like nothing that's out there in the marketplace, meaning it's probably about a 2-year program to where instructors, young instructors can come and really learn how to be great teachers. And because I feel like if they were great teachers, if there were more great teachers out there that knew how to use these tools, these feedback tools, and I'm not saying that my methodology is any better than anybody else's. I'm really not. That's not the point of it. But right now, as you know, in our industry, what does it take to become a pro and a teaching pro? It really does. It just needs it. You have to pass some classes by the PGA of America. And basically, you're out there, and you can get a job doing, a head pro or teaching pro or whatever. And so there's really no great place to go to really learn how to be a great teacher and really take teaching seriously. So that's something that I'm looking forward to developing, and it's a huge project to develop the curriculum for that, to do the kind of job that I really want to do.
Mike, the final thing I want to ask you about is personally for me. I've been, what do you think, like when you're talking about exaggeration and other things, what do you find are some of the best ways, when we see like some of the best players in the world, like Zach, for example, and Charles Schwartzel, and some of the best drivers, they're at impact, they're getting their hands much more forward in their swings than, it's almost, you can almost judge it by handicap how backwards the hands are from a face-on view. And what are some of the ways you find are most effective to get the hands like more forward with the driver? Because especially with players like we were talking about, when the torso and hips, like they turn so early, the arms get left behind them, and then they have that broken look at impact. What are some of the best ways to get more of that hands off the left leg, a little bit of shaft lean almost with driver?
Well, I think it comes from if your driver is the longest club in your bag, so it is it requires the shallowest swing, and I'm hesitating here because I'm driving and I got to go through a car gate.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So hold on one second here, and because I really want to answer that.
While Mike's doing that, guys, click the subscribe button, and any questions you have, I'll have them back on the show when we can do like a Skype or a video deal. So just click the subscribe button and put any questions below. This book, by the way, guys, is there's a link for it in the description below. I really recommend it. It's really good, and you're gonna have to get used to. If you read this book, you're gonna have to get used to going to the driving range with a lot of noodles and cones and balls and all kinds of stuff. Because if you want to get better, you really got to get outside of your comfort zone. Just wait for Mike to come back. I really don't like editing, so I just want to keep this going so I don't even have to edit it.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, so I'm holding up here a picture of Charles Schwartzel from near the Masters, and he's got his, at impact, face on, he's got his hands off his left leg. And then most guys, I see them, either the hands are level with their zipper or even level with the right hip. What can we do? And I see a dramatic difference when the hands get more forward in the swing at that point. What can we do to make that happen more?
Well, number one, you've got to, at the start of the downswing, the golf club has to be coming down shallow. And if you get a shallower angle of attack, especially with the driver, because the driver is the longest club in the bag, so therefore it requires shallow swing. And if you're coming down shallow, that's going to develop more lag.
Now, Mike, are you talking about hand path or the actual shaft?
The actual shaft. The hand path should be making, just like with an iron or any other club, the hand path should be accelerating toward the golf ball. It should be moving toward the ball, just like if I had a golf ball and I just threw a golf ball at a ball on the ground, my hand would go directly towards it. And so it's the same way. So the hand path is moving at the ball. The shaft is lining up mostly with the right forearm. That's an indicator that you're coming in shallow enough. And if that happens, then you're going to develop quite a bit of lag. And that lag is the retention of the angle, that look of not releasing early. And so if I have that lag, now my hands can get forward and impact. But the reason most people don't do that is because they do rotate too early with a longer shafted golf club, and the club tends to release early, and so their hands are not as far ahead at impact, and they're scooping or whatever through the golf ball. So it's really a byproduct. To kind of summarize it, I mean, it's a byproduct of sequence again, and developing that lag. And then the things that we do to work with it is we train people how to use their left wrist and how to flatten that left wrist and not let the club head pass. There's several drills that we do for that. That might be a little hard to explain on the over the phone, but
yeah. Well, I've made that I'm showing to the camera now. This rice bucket that I saw in your gym.
Yeah.
So I'm holding the handle of the rice bucket, and I'm holding the handle of this kind of metal T, and you can see that as I'm twisting the rice, you can see that left wrist is getting stronger and has that bit of bow to it.
Right, and keep in mind that type of a release is for a neutral grip. So if you have a relatively neutral grip, then you're going to be able to have that type of release.
Right. So what's some as far as with noodles or balls, and we have your book here too to show. What's your favorite drill for the driver for getting the hands more forward in the swing? If you had to be super general, your favorite drill.
We put a noodle on the ground, and then the sticking up in the air about a foot, and then we get the club under it, and so I love that drill with the driver because you have to swing, the club head has to come down shallow in order to stay underneath the noodle. And the noodle, or the alignment, you can just use an alignment rod, and basically what it is it's parallel to the target line, and the tip of the rod is up about a foot off the ground, and then the shaft is about 2 to 3 inches inside of that rod, so it gives it room to swing underneath. And if I can swing the club head underneath, then I'm going to develop that lag, and I'm going to be coming from the inside, and then I can get my hands more forward.
Well, that's really interesting how much of a connection you see between coming from the inside and getting your swing more in front of yourself.
That's a true statement. I mean, you can come from the inside with a lot of rotation, but if you do, you're going to be a lot like Jim Furyk, which is usually your arms are way behind you and your hands have to drop vertically in the transition. They have to drop straight down, which we don't want to do, but they have to. If I rotate really hard, my hands have to drop to be able to come from the inside.
Well, that's all I had, Mike. Thank you for this really in-depth conversation about getting better in the golf swing. I hope that we're gonna collaborate coming up soon. We'll put some of your upcoming content, maybe some tidbits of it on Be Better Golf to promote what you have going on. And where can people find out? What would you like to let people know about as far as your instruction or products or whatever else?
Well, I think they can have some fun looking at our Instagram, which is they go on Instagram and look up Mike Better Golf, and then if they go on our website, just MikeBetter.com, they can see some of the facilities. We just are launching a new website, so I'm excited about that. We just took all new pictures here a couple days ago, and they'll be up on the site soon. So yeah, so we got a lot of fun things that people can take a look at.
Is that going to be a separate membership site that you're building out, or is that going to just be more content for your site?
Yeah, we are going to have a membership side to our site, and we're going to do some great things with that. That's coming. So that's coming up here over the next few months as we get amped up here.
Really exciting. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So hang on, Mike, because I want to talk to you after I sign off. But thanks for watching, everybody. Click the subscribe button. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. You can email me, contactbebettergolf@gmail.com. You guys can contact Mike through his website, mikebender.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.